Congratulations! You've passed your PE exam and you're ready to celebrate. You want something special to commemorate this occasion, but all you can find on Etsy is mass-produced crap from China that someone laser engraves your name onto. What you need is something that will inspire awe in your coworkers and strike fear into all those designs you're going to stamp. You need the PE hammer. Hammer of approval? Gavel of adequacy? I don't know. The name's TBD. Stick around and I'll show you how this is made. And if you like this and want one for yourself or for that special PE in your life, check out the description below for a link to my store. Let's get to it.
I've had this mesquite wood sitting around air drying for a couple years with no real idea what I was going to do with it, but I decided that making the heads of these hammers out of this mesquite wood would be a great use for it. This tree broke in a windstorm several years ago, and while none of the tree was straight enough to get any boards out of, I was at least able to save some pieces for turning blanks like this and a few larger ones for making bowls. Wood blank for the heads doesn't have to be perfectly square, but getting it close helps you set up your lines later for both centering the blank on the lathe and for making the mark for where you're going to drill the hole for the handle. I'm drilling a 3/4 inch diameter hole to about the midpoint of the block. That way there's plenty of depth to seat your handle later on. The brass insert is 2 inches in diameter, so I'm turning the head to 2 1/4 inch. That way I've got about 1/8 of an inch of lip on either side of the insert. I had a blowout here, but thankfully I was able to find the piece and with a little CA glue and accelerant quickly reattach it and get back to turning. After squaring both ends, I still had to round over the one end that the blowout occurred on to hide a little bit of chip out. With the handle, I'm starting by turning down the tendon that will insert into the head. You want to go slow with this and take your time so you don't take too much off and end up with loose fit. This is also where a set of calipers really helps. Next, I'm just marking some reference lines of the general shape I want this thing to take. I'm actually taking inspiration from one of my lathe tool handles for the general shape of this thing. Just a quick test fit up to make sure we've got a good fit, and then we're going to mark the actual diameter of the handle where it meets the head, and then we're going to cut a recess into the head so that we get a nice clean fit. Last step at the lathe is to mount the head back into the chuck and then cut the 2-inch recess that the brass insert fits into. When you have the depth just right, you can optionally drill and tap the head so that you can put it back onto the lathe in the other direction and sand it to clean it up. Though you could certainly just hand sand to clean up the outside. And finally, we're getting to assembly. We're using a 2-part epoxy for the brass, and because I already had it mixed up, I went ahead and used it for the handle. That you could certainly just use any common wood glue for the handle. I do recommend that you use a piece of painter's tape to hold the brass insert in place while the glue dries. I got lucky on this one, but on one of the subsequent hammers I made, the brass kind of floated a little off center while it dried. And just that little piece of painter's tape would have just prevented that screw up at the very end. I'm doing 2 coats of tung oil for the finish with a day of dry time in between each one. Make sure once you let the oil sit for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you then come back and wipe it all off, or else you'll have a sticky finish. You could also use something like boiled linseed oil for a finish if you don't want to use tung oil. If you'd like to know more about how to mill brass on the CNC, I've got a video that I'll link to. And if you think you'd want one of these for yourself, then check out the description below for a link to my store. As always, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe.